Welcome back, Coinology. In the quiet hum of everyday life, where pocket change passes from hand to hand without a thought, few ever pause to imagine the stories hidden within those small copper discs. Yet in the world of numismatics, every coin tells a tale of history, of struggle, of artistry, and sometimes, of unimaginable fortune. And among those unassuming cents that jingled through the pockets of Americans in the mid-1970s, one stands out like a whisper from the past: the 1976 Lincoln penny. Minted in the heart of the nation's bicentennial year, this tiny piece of copper holds within it not only the image of Abraham Lincoln but also the weight of America's 200-year legacy, a symbol of resilience, liberty, and craftsmanship, and, for a few, the promise of untold riches. As the story goes, the year 1976 was no ordinary year in the United States. Fireworks burst over city skies, marching bands paraded through the streets, and every household tuned in to celebrate the bicentennial, 200 years since the signing of the Declaration of Independence. The nation was drenched in red, white, and blue pride, and the U.S. Mint, ever attuned to history, produced special coins to mark the occasion: quarters, half dollars, and dollars with the famous 1776 to 1976 dual date. But curiously, the humble 1-cent coin, the penny, was not given a bicentennial redesign. It quietly continued its standard issue, featuring the stoic bust of Lincoln designed by Victor David Brenner in 1909 and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse by Frank Gasparo. And yet, despite being ordinary, the 1976 penny would later become one of the most talked about small coins in modern American collecting history. The D under the date tells us it was minted in Denver, Colorado, one of the busiest mints in the United States. That year, over 4 billion pennies rolled out of the Denver Mint. Most were destined for ordinary circulation, pocket change for grocery stores, vending machines, lunch counters, and car wash tips. But among those billions, collectors believe that a handful were struck with subtle differences, variations in planchet composition, die errors, or striking anomalies that transformed them from pocket change into priceless rarities. To understand why the 1976 penny has drawn so much attention, we have to start with what it's made of. Like other Lincoln cents of that era, it weighs approximately 3.11 grams, composed of 95% copper and 5% zinc. Its diameter measures 19 millimeters, a small, unassuming size, yet it's the most widely recognized coin in America. When you hold one in your palm, you're holding a fragment of American history, copper that may have been mined from Arizona, smelted in Pennsylvania, and pressed by machines in Denver with astonishing precision. On its obverse, Lincoln's profile faces right, his gaze steady and dignified. Above his head, the words "In God We Trust" curve in an arch, a declaration of faith and perseverance. To his left, the word liberty rests quietly, and to the right, the date, 1976, followed by the tiny yet powerful D. Beneath the surface lies a million stories of a nation's evolution, of collectors' obsessions, and of the strange way value can emerge from the ordinary. But the fascination with the 1976 cent doesn't come merely from its design, it's rooted in mystery. Over time, reports began to surface of certain 1976 pennies that didn't quite look like the others. Some were struck on foreign planchets, blanks intended for other countries' coins, resulting in unusual weights and colors. Others exhibited double dies, off-center strikes, or striking clarity so sharp that it seemed almost supernatural. And then there were those with metallic anomalies, pennies that appeared silver or even gold in hue, sparking rumors of experimental compositions or accidental mint errors. Collectors began to whisper about a mythical batch of Denver minted cents that were not supposed to exist, their value climbing as stories spread across coin clubs, collector forums, and auction houses. The beauty of the 1976 penny lies in its paradox: a coin meant to be ordinary that became extraordinary through accident, time, and legend. At first glance, it is nothing special. But take that same coin under a magnifying glass and you might notice something subtle: the faint doubling of letters and liberty, the soft blur of the date, or a strange metallic gleam that doesn't match its copper brethren. These anomalies are what numismatists call mint errors, and in the world of coin collecting, errors can mean everything. An error transforms a 1-cent piece into a unique artifact, a one-of-a-kind creation that tells a story of imperfection in an otherwise perfect system. As word spread of a rare 1976 error penny, collectors began hunting through jars, rolls, and old coffee tins filled with pennies from the 1970s. Coin dealers received calls from curious owners who'd found shiny or lightweight cents. Magnifiers sold out. And slowly, a myth grew that one of these mysterious coins had sold for a staggering $72 million. Though that figure was likely exaggerated by internet folklore, it fueled an obsession. What if, people wondered, the penny sitting forgotten in a drawer could hold unimaginable wealth? The legend gained even more allure because of America's deep emotional bond with Lincoln pennies. Since 1909, the Lincoln cent has symbolized humility and perseverance, a small coin honoring a great man. Victor David Brenner's original design was more than portraiture, it was a national statement, marking the centennial of Lincoln's birth. Over the decades, the penny survived wars, inflation, and redesign debates, yet it never lost its sentimental place in American culture. Every child's first savings jar, every lucky penny found on the ground, every tip left on a counter, the Lincoln cent has been a constant. And so, when a story emerged that one version of this humble coin could be worth more than entire collections, it tapped into something deeper than money. It became a modern American treasure hunt. But let's step back and imagine the Denver Mint in 1976, the rhythmic pounding of presses striking blank copper planchets, thousands per minute, each blow imprinting Lincoln's face with 60 tons of pressure. Workers monitored the MGHT of about 4.8 grams instead of 3.11. Others proposed that the variation came from leftover experimental planchets from the Mint's transition period. Still others believe a few were struck using proof dies by mistake, creating mirror-like surfaces. Any of these possibilities could explain why certain examples fetch astronomical prices at auction. Over time, these possibilities merged into legend. Coin magazines began to publish stories of extraordinary finds: an elderly man in Colorado discovering a strange silver-colored penny in his attic change jar, a teenage collector in Texas spotting a mistruck Lincoln cent in a roll he bought. FO coins are historical witnesses. The 1976 D penny is a tiny time capsule from America's bicentennial year, when patriotism filled the air, when the space age met the television age, when the country looked back on 2 centuries of independence and forward to the unknown. To hold one is to touch the same copper that circulated through the hands of everyday Americans celebrating that monumental year. Workers, students, soldiers, families, all unknowingly carrying a piece of history in their pockets. Every scratch and blemish tells a story. Maybe this penny was used to buy a newspaper reporting the election results of 1976, or maybe it was handed as change at a gas station on a road trip to see the Statue of Liberty for the bicentennial. Maybe it was dropped in the cracks of a car seat and rediscovered decades later, its copper still gleaming faintly under the dust of time. And somewhere, out there, perhaps one of those rare variations, the mythical 1976 D, remains hidden, waiting to be found by someone who believes. As we journey deeper into the story of this remarkable coin, we begin to see that it's not just about money. It's about fascination, the human desire to find value in the overlooked, to seek treasures in the ordinary. It's about how something so small can carry the weight of history, art, and mystery all at once. And maybe, just maybe, that's why the 1976 D penny continues to captivate hearts and imaginations nearly 50 years later. As the years drifted beyond 1976, the quiet pulse of American life carried on. New presidents took office, the Cold War thawed and froze again, and technology began reshaping the nation. Yet, in attics, drawers, and dusty coin jars, countless Lincoln cents slept undisturbed. They were tossed into piggy banks, slid across diner counters, or dropped between couch cushions. And somewhere, among those billions of forgotten pennies, lay a small handful that would one day capture the attention of the entire collecting world, the 1976 D Lincoln cents that were anything but ordinary. To understand how such a small coin could rise to mythical status, one must first understand the invisible world of minting, a place where precision rules but chance occasionally reigns. Every coin begins as a blank, called a planchet, cut from long copper strips. These blanks are annealed, washed, and dried before being fed into coining presses that strike them with incredible force, imprinting Lincoln's face on one side and the Lincoln Memorial on the other. A perfect process, repeated billions of times. Yet in the microscopic moments between each strike, imperfections can creep in. A misaligned die. A crack in the metal. A double strike caused by a mechanical hiccup. Or, more rarely, a wrong planchet altogether slipping into the press. And it is in those infinitesimal accidents that history sometimes leaves its fingerprints. For numismatists, errors are not mistakes, they are signatures of authenticity, physical evidence of the human hand in an automated age. And for the 1976 D penny, such errors became a kind of sacred mystery. Collectors began to notice that a few specimens of the 1976 D cent had lighter weights, some as low as 2.5 grams, suggesting a planchet meant for the zinc-coated steel cents of 1943 or perhaps a foreign coin blank. Others had the opposite problem, heavier weights, up to 3.4 grams, as if the metal mix had been slightly off. Some gleamed with a silver or bronze gold hue, their surfaces reflecting light unlike any other cent. Magnification revealed doubling on Liberty or the date, faint but distinct, the telltale sign of a double die strike. And once collectors saw it, they could never unsee it. By the late 1980s and into the 1990s, stories of the strange 1976 D cent circulated in hobby newsletters and local coin shows. Dealers displayed samples that, while ordinary to the untrained eye, seemed to hum with curiosity under the glass. Some claimed the coins were experimental strikes. Others said they were mint test pieces accidentally released into circulation. A few scoffed, calling it hype. But every time one of these oddities surfaced at auction, bidding wars erupted, and the myth grew. It wasn't only about rarity, it was about what rarity represented. In a world where everything is mass-produced, where billions of identical coins roll off presses, the idea that one single penny could be unique, could defy the system, carried an almost poetic weight. It symbolized chance, fate, destiny. Perhaps that's why people fell in love with the legend. Around this time, coin graders began using new technologies, microscopes, digital imaging, spectral analysis, to authenticate and classify specimens. A handful of 1976 cents were certified as mint error coins with extraordinary features: double dies, off-center strikes, partial brockages, and anomalous compositions. One in particular, found in a small collection in Arizona, sparked enormous interest. It had a silvery appearance, a slightly heavier weight, and an ultra-sharp strike quality, suggesting it was pressed on a leftover 40% silver planchet intended for bicentennial quarters. When this coin appeared at auction, collectors held their breath. The hammer price soared past expectations, reaching into the millions, and with it, the legend of the $72 million penny was born. Of course, legends often begin with kernels of truth. While exact figures are debated, verified auction records show that rare mint error pennies have indeed fetched enormous sums, some selling for hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars, depending on their condition and anomaly. And so, over time, fact and fantasy intertwined until the line between them disappeared. The internet accelerated the myth, turning whispers into headlines. Rare 1976 penny sells for $72 million. The number, whether exaggerated or misreported, captured imaginations worldwide. It didn't matter if it was precise, what mattered was that it could be true, that somewhere, someone might pull a fortune from a handful of change. But beyond money, there's something deeper about this fascination. The Lincoln cent represents endurance. For over a century, it has remained a constant companion of American life. Think of all the moments these coins have witnessed: the Great Depression, World Wars, the Civil Rights Movement, the rise of digital technology. Each coin, no matter how small, is a storyteller in metal. And the 1976 penny tells the story of a country celebrating freedom while unknowingly producing a few silent treasures that would later ignite a global treasure hunt. Imagine holding one in your hand. Its edges slightly worn, the ridges smooth from decades of circulation. You tilt it under light, and for a moment, you think you see something different: a silvery glint, a doubled line in the word liberty, perhaps a faint irregularity near the date. Your pulse quickens. Could this be it? That simple thrill, that surge of possibility, is what drives collectors to search roll after roll, jar after jar. It's not greed, it's curiosity, the timeless joy of discovery. And perhaps that's what makes the 1976 story so timeless. Unlike gold or silver coins struck for prestige, the penny is democratic. It belongs to everyone. Anyone might find one. A schoolteacher, a mechanic, a child. That accessibility transforms the search into a collective dream. It reminds people that history is not locked away in museums, sometimes it hides in plain sight, waiting in your pocket. As numismatic scholars studied these coins, they found more intriguing clues. Metallurgical tests revealed subtle variations in copper-to-zinc ratios, suggesting experimental planchets. High-resolution scans showed unusual die markers, like faint cracks that did not appear on standard 1976 dies. One coin even exhibited proof-like surfaces on only one side, a phenomenon nearly impossible under normal minting conditions. Each new finding deepened the enigma, making the 1976 not just a coin, but a conversation, a living mystery that bridges science, art, and history. And in the background of this growing fascination lies the human element, the collectors themselves. Some dedicate lifetimes to studying pennies, cataloging minute details invisible to most eyes. They learn to read the tiniest signs: the texture of metal flow, the sharpness of lettering, the color of oxidation. For them, each discovery is like hearing history whisper through copper. The 1976 penny, then, is not just about monetary worth. It's about meaning. It's a reminder that small things, humble, overlooked things, can carry immense significance. In an age when digital transactions dominate, when coins are vanishing from daily life, the fascination with one rare cent reminds us of a tactile connection to the past. These coins are artifacts of labor, of machinery, of artistry, and of the people who made them. When the Denver Mint struck those coins in 1976, no one imagined that half a century later they'd be subjects of documentaries, debates, and multi-million-dollar auctions. The workers were simply doing their jobs, feeding blanks into presses, packaging rolls, and shipping them nationwide. Yet history has a strange way of choosing its symbols. A single misfed planchet, a slightly over-polished die, or a brief vibration in a press, those infinitesimal moments created something unique, something that outlived the ordinary. Today, when collectors gather at conventions or online forums, the topic inevitably returns to the legendary 1976 Someone always asks, has anyone actually seen the $72 million one? And someone always answers, maybe. The legend of the 1976 penny is, in many ways, the legend of America itself. A tale of chance, perseverance, and hope. Born in a year celebrating freedom, struck in a mint symbolizing industry, and rediscovered by dreamers who saw beauty in imperfection. Its journey mirrors that of the country whose image it bears, imperfect yet enduring, ordinary yet extraordinary. And so, as the decades roll on and the world turns increasingly digital, the story of this single cent continues to grow. Collectors still search, auctions still whisper rumors, and historians still debate. Each new discovery rekindles the fascination, proving that even the smallest object can hold an entire universe of meaning. Time has a way of turning myths into mysteries and mysteries into obsessions. By the dawn of the 21st century, the 1976 D Lincoln cent had become something more than a coin. It had become a symbol of possibility. Collectors who once hunted rare silver dollars or colonial gold pieces now found themselves drawn to a humble penny that somehow seemed to defy logic. It wasn't the grandeur of the metal that mattered anymore, it was the story, the sense that this ordinary object had been chosen by fate to become extraordinary. The world of coin collecting had changed by then. Auctions moved online, global buyers connected in real time, and the rare coin market surged as investors realized that numismatic art could be as valuable as paintings or diamonds. Grading services like PCGS and NGC standardized the process, assigning precise conditions to every piece: mint state, proof, cameo, deep mirror. And among these coins, the 1976 D began to surface again, this time not as a rumor, but as a verified curiosity. Dealers began to list examples with strange toning or metallic anomalies. Some were authenticated as off-metal strikes, their planchets confirmed to contain trace amounts of nickel or silver. Others were certified as double die obverse, their inscriptions slightly doubled under magnification. And each time one of these coins appeared, the market trembled. Collectors knew they were witnessing history. By the late 2010s, numismatic journalists began revisiting the legend of the $72 million penny. Some traced its origins to an overzealous internet post that combined facts about rare 1970s mint errors with modern hype. But others suggested that the story was built on a foundation of truth, that one or two extraordinary examples had indeed sold for sums so large that their exact amounts were kept private at the buyer's request. In numismatic circles, secrecy often feeds the flame. The less people know, the more their imaginations fill in the gaps. And yet, behind all the speculation, real discoveries continue to surface. In one remarkable case, a man from Kansas found an uncirculated 1976 D penny sealed inside a 1970s proof set. The coin displayed mirror-like surfaces and razor-sharp details, unlike any other Denver circulation strike. Metallurgical analysis revealed unusual density and color, perhaps the result of experimental striking pressure or planchet composition. When the coin was sold privately, the transaction was estimated to be worth millions. No one could confirm the exact number, but the legend grew louder. The modern coin market thrives on stories like this. Collectors are storytellers at heart, they want to own not just metal, but meaning. Each rare coin represents a moment where history, art, and chance collide. The 1976 D penny became a symbol of that perfect intersection. And as more people learned its story, more began to search. Videos appeared online, hobbyists unrolling boxes of pennies, treasure hunters examining them under magnifying glasses, voices trembling with excitement at the thought that they might be holding a multi-million-dollar rarity. The legend spread far beyond numismatic circles, reaching the curious, the dreamers, and the ordinary people who suddenly found themselves inspecting every coin they owned. And that, perhaps, is the most fascinating part of all, the democratization of discovery. You don't need wealth, education, or connections to find a rare penny. You just need patience, curiosity, and luck. For every collector who spends thousands at auctions, there's another who finds a treasure in a handful of pocket change. The 1976 D penny represents that hope, that the universe sometimes rewards those who look closely. Numismatic historians often point out that the Lincoln cent, by 1976, was nearing the end of an era. Within a few years, rising copper prices would force the U.S. Mint to change its composition. By 1982, the penny's core became zinc, its copper coating only a thin shell. So the 1976 D stands among the last of the solid copper cents, forged from a metal that carried literal value. Even if melted down, each cent contained nearly as much copper value as its face worth. It's ironic, the coin that became worth millions started out as one of the last truly valuable pennies in material terms. But what makes its story timeless isn't metal, it's meaning. The bicentennial year itself adds emotional gravity. 200 years of independence, a nation reflecting on its journey from revolution to modernity. The penny of that year carries a symbolic echo of that reflection. On one side, Lincoln's face, the man who preserved the Union. On the other, the Lincoln Memorial, the monument to his memory. And the date 1976, marking not just time but triumph. Perhaps that's why collectors feel an almost sacred reverence for it. It's not just a coin, it's a relic of American endurance. And as decades passed, the mystery only deepened. Some experts suggested that the rumored $72 million sale might have involved a unique specimen, possibly a 1976 D struck on a silver bicentennial quarter planchet with full mirror finish, preserved in flawless condition, discovered decades later by an anonymous collector. Others claim the story was magnified by online sensationalism. Yet, regardless of its truth, the legend refused to die. It evolved from rumor to folklore, from folklore to modern myth, until even skeptics found themselves drawn to its magic. It's easy to dismiss such legends as exaggeration, but they reveal something profound about human nature. People crave wonder. In a world driven by digital transactions and invisible currencies, the idea that an object as small and tangible as a penny could change someone's life resonates deeply. It reminds us that value is not always visible. That meaning can hide in the mundane. The modern coin market reflects that philosophy. Collectors don't just chase value, they chase connection. When a rare coin appears at auction, the room vibrates with energy. Paddles rise, voices whisper, eyes widen. It's not just commerce, it's communion. And when the auctioneer calls sold at a figure that defies comprehension, applause often follows. Not for the money, but for the moment, for the survival of beauty and mystery in a world that often forgets to look closely. And so, the 1976 D penny continues its journey. In 2024 and beyond, numismatic forums still buzz with new discoveries. Coin graders still receive submissions of 1976 D cents in hopes of uncovering the elusive error that might change everything. Each time one surfaces with an unusual weight or composition, the world takes notice. Auction houses receive private offers. Journalists write speculative articles. And somewhere, someone opens a jar of old pennies and wonders if they might be holding the impossible. The beauty of it all is that the story never really ends. It's not just about the coin, it's about the search itself, the act of believing that wonder still exists in everyday life. Because somewhere between the copper glow and the worn edges lies a question that refuses to fade: what if this one is the one? Perhaps that's why collectors describe their passion not as a hobby but as a calling. The pursuit of rare coins is, in many ways, the pursuit of meaning. Every coin has fingerprints of time, scratches from decades of use, a dull sheen from millions of exchanges. And within those marks lie the echoes of human life. A penny from 1976 might have traveled through thousands of hands, crossing states, cities, generations. It could have been used to buy a newspaper, to make a phone call, or dropped in a wishing fountain by a child. Now, decades later, it sits under a magnifier, revered as a treasure. That transformation is nothing short of poetic. And so, the story of the 1976 D Lincoln cent remains one of the most captivating in numismatic history, not because every rumor is true, but because every rumor keeps the dream alive. The $72 million legend, whether myth or miracle, embodies the same spirit that drove explorers across oceans and inventors toward discovery, the belief that something extraordinary lies hidden, waiting for those who look close enough to find it. And in the end, maybe that's the real worth of the coin, not its market value, not its composition, but its ability to inspire curiosity, patience, and hope. In a world where so much feels fleeting, the simple act of holding a coin from 1976 and wondering about its journey is a quiet rebellion against forgetfulness. It's a reminder that even the smallest things can endure, shining through time, whispering stories to anyone willing to listen. As the story of the 1976 D penny continued to echo through decades of coin lore, its meaning began to shift from the realm of material value to something more profound. It was no longer merely about a rare mint error or an extraordinary auction sale, it became a reflection of the human desire to hold history in one's hand, to preserve a fragment of time that refuses to fade. Collectors who once chased profit began to speak of something deeper, something intangible that lived within the copper surface itself, a resonance, a memory, a feeling that this coin somehow transcended its function as currency. There is something poetic in the idea that the smallest denomination in American currency became one of its most treasured. The penny, dismissed by many as insignificant, embodies the quiet persistence of value. It reminds us that even the smallest things can carry the greatest stories. The 1976 D, in particular, stands at the intersection of history, artistry, and myth. It was struck in a year that celebrated freedom, engraved with the likeness of the man who gave his life for unity, and born in a mint that has produced billions of coins, yet only a few that the world now whispers about. In the world of numismatics, experts classify known varieties of the 1976 D Lincoln cent into several fascinating categories. First are the standard circulation strikes, produced by the millions, each weighing around 3.11 grams of copper and zinc. Then come the minor anomalies, coins with slight die cracks, misaligned strikes, or weak lettering caused by worn dies. These are common yet beloved by collectors for their personality. Rarer still are the off-metal strikes, which may have been struck on planchets intended for other denominations or even foreign coins. These can vary in color, tone, and weight, giving them an almost ghostly appearance among normal cents. Some examples have been found with double die outbursts, where letters in Liberty or the date appear slightly doubled, a result of misalignment during die creation. These are among the most desirable error types, as they represent a tangible glimpse into the minting process itself. Then there are the proof-like specimens, coins with mirror surfaces so smooth and reflective that they seem to glow under light. How they came to exist remains debated, perhaps experimental strikes, perhaps accidental test pieces struck with proof dies. Whatever their origin, their beauty is undeniable. Each variation tells its own story, and together they form a constellation of mystery around the 1976 cent. Even those who know the science behind minting admit that some examples defy explanation. That's what makes them enchanting. They exist in the narrow space between order and chaos, between precision and chance. And chance has always played a role in human destiny. For the collector who finds one, it feels almost mystical. Imagine sifting through an old coin jar, the sound of metal clinking against metal, a random mix of decades and designs. Your fingers stop on one darker, smoother, a faintly different hue. You wipe it clean and see the small d beneath the date 1976. Something feels different. Your heart beats faster, not because of greed, but because of wonder. That small moment, the pause, the curiosity, the thrill, is the essence of numismatics. The modern era has only magnified that feeling. Social media has turned collectors into storytellers, each video or post spreading the legend further. Millions of viewers watch in fascination as someone holds up a small penny under bright light, turning it slowly as if revealing a relic of the gods. They speak of its weight, its metallic gleam, its subtle differences. And whether or not every story proves true, each one keeps the spirit alive. For every genuine discovery, there are hundreds of hopeful searches, and that hope is what keeps the heart of collecting beating. In a sense, the 1976 penny has become a mirror reflecting human nature itself. It shows how easily we project meaning onto the smallest things, how we find stories in objects that most would overlook. That power of imagination, the ability to turn metal into memory, to see beauty in imperfection, is what sets humanity apart. Collectors are dreamers disguised as historians. They study die markers and mint records, yet what they truly seek is connection to the past, to the process, to the people who made and used these coins. The design itself carries layers of meaning that often go unnoticed. Victor David Brenner's portrait of Lincoln, chosen in 1909, was based on a photograph taken by Anthony Berger in 1864. It captures not just Lincoln's features but his expression: weary, compassionate, resolved. It's as though the face on the coin is not looking at the present but gazing into eternity. And on the reverse, Frank Gasparo's depiction of the Lincoln Memorial echoes that sentiment, a monument to endurance, carved in stone, replicated in copper. Together, obverse and reverse form a dialogue between man and memory, between history and legacy. When the Denver Mint struck the 1976 cents, it unknowingly produced a piece of art that would outlive its own time. Even the mechanical precision of minting could not suppress the subtle individuality of each coin, the microscopic variations in strike pressure, the wear on the dies, the minute shifts in alignment. In a way, every coin is unique, and the rare ones simply reveal that truth more visibly. And then there's the question of value, that staggering figure, $72 million, whispered like a secret across the internet. Skeptics laugh, experts analyze, believers hope. But the truth is that value itself is a human invention. It's a story we tell about worth. When enough people believe in a story, it becomes reality. Gold has no intrinsic value beyond what people assign to it. Art is priceless because emotion makes it so. In that sense, the 1976 penny's rumored worth is not just financial, it's cultural. It's a story so powerful that it became part of collective imagination. And that, in itself, is a kind of truth. Every generation rediscovers this fascination. Children who once collected state quarters grow up to hunt vintage pennies. Grandparents pass down jars of coins as heirlooms, unknowingly giving their descendants a treasure of history. Each coin is a time traveler, a witness to lives long past. When you think about it, the 1976 cent is a storyteller that never stops speaking, its whispers carried from one hand to another, one century to the next. For some, the allure is intellectual, studying the mint marks, cataloging die varieties, decoding the science of striking. For others, it's emotional, a connection to their childhood, to a time when pennies still felt magical. For a few, it's almost spiritual, an act of finding meaning in randomness, of believing that destiny can reveal itself in the smallest form. And maybe that's the greatest lesson the 1976 penny offers, that wonder still exists. In a world of screens and algorithms, where everything seems known and measured, a small copper coin reminds us that not everything has been discovered, that mystery is not extinct. The legend of the $72 million penny invites people to look again, to notice the overlooked, to believe that even the simplest objects can hold extraordinary stories. It also challenges our idea of value itself. If a 1-cent coin can become a priceless artifact, what else in our lives might carry hidden worth? Perhaps it's a reminder that meaning isn't given, it's found. That beauty often hides in plain sight. And that time, patience, and curiosity can transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. As the 1976 penny passes from generation to generation, its legend grows not through proof but through belief. Every collector who searches for it adds another verse to its story. Every auction that whispers its name renews its mystery. And every person who looks at a penny and wonders what if becomes part of its eternal myth. And maybe, in the end, that's what makes it truly priceless, not the metal, not the market, not the rumor, but the endless fascination it inspires. A tiny circle of copper, stamped nearly half a century ago, now stands as a symbol of curiosity, endurance, and hope. The years passed, but the fascination with the 1976 penny only grew stronger. What began as a quiet curiosity among collectors in the late 20th century had, by the dawn of the digital age, transformed into a global phenomenon. The internet, that vast archive of dreams and data, became the new frontier for coin hunters. Online marketplaces, auction platforms, and collector forums turned the search for rare pennies into a kind of modern gold rush. Every new listing sparked debates, theories, and sometimes disbelief. Photos of weathered copper discs, magnified and pixelated, were analyzed like ancient relics. Somewhere, beneath the chatter and speculation, the myth of the $72 million penny began to take root. People started to tell stories. One man claimed he found one in an old change jar left by his grandfather. Another said he stumbled upon it at a garage sale, paying only a few cents for what he later learned might be priceless. YouTube channels emerged, their creators sitting under bright lights, turning pennies over with gloved hands, narrating their discoveries in voices full of awe. Titles like "This Penny Could Make You Rich" and "Check Your Change, It Could Be Worth Millions" drew millions of views. Whether or not those coins were genuine mattered less than the feeling they evoked, the idea that the ordinary could suddenly become extraordinary. For the Denver Mint, the 1976 was just another year in the unending rhythm of production. Machines clattered, dice struck, copper flowed, millions of coins pressed, inspected, bagged, and shipped. Yet within that sea of uniformity, a few slipped through, bearing anomalies that would one day fuel legends. Perhaps a die was slightly misaligned, or a planchet of an unusual alloy found its way into the press. Small errors that, at the time, went unnoticed. But decades later, those imperfections would be hailed as miracles by collectors seeking something truly rare. Auction houses, sensing the growing fervor, began to capitalize on it. They presented rare pennies in velvet-lined cases, their surfaces gleaming under the auction lights. The room would fall silent as the bidding began, voices steady at first, then rising in tension. Numbers climbed higher and higher, until the crowd gasped as a simple cent reached thousands, then tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars. It wasn't just a coin anymore, it was a symbol of destiny, a reminder that history could hide in plain sight. And then came the moment that cemented the legend, the rumored private sale of a 1976 specimen for $72 million. Details were scarce, documentation scarce, but the whispers spread like wildfire. Was it an error coin struck on a foreign planchet? Was it a prototype or experimental issue that somehow escaped the mint? Nobody knew for sure, but in the absence of certainty, belief filled the void. Belief is a powerful thing, it shapes economies, drives collectors, and turns rumors into relics. Overnight, the 1976 became the most talked about coin in the world. Collectors from every corner of the globe began searching their collections, digging through boxes, jars, and forgotten drawers. Schoolchildren asked their parents to save every penny they received in change. The story crossed borders, languages, and generations. Even those who knew little about numismatics found themselves enchanted by the tale of a 1-cent coin worth millions. It was a modern fairy tale, and everyone wanted to believe they might be the next protagonist. In the quiet corners of coin shows, experts gathered around magnifiers and microscopes, studying the few known varieties. They debated die markers, strike pressure, and alloy content. Some claimed to have seen unusual luster, a proof-like finish suggesting special striking conditions. Others dismissed such claims as wishful thinking. But even among skeptics, there was a hint of admiration for the story itself, for the collective imagination that had elevated the humble penny to mythical status. In this way, the 1976 penny became more than an object, it became an idea. And ideas, once born, are impossible to destroy. They linger in conversations, in search bars, in dreams. They inspire people to look again, to question what they think they know. The coin's rumored worth became a metaphor for potential, that somewhere, hidden in the mundane fabric of life, unimaginable value could exist, waiting to be discovered. As technology advanced, so did the hunt. High-resolution photography, portable microscopes, and digital databases allowed collectors to analyze details once invisible to the naked eye. Some turned to artificial intelligence to identify dye markers, comparing millions of images in seconds. Yet despite all this progress, the most extraordinary discoveries still came from intuition, from someone simply paying attention. The lesson repeated itself: discovery favors the observant. Those who held a 1976 penny often spoke of a strange feeling, as if the coin carried a weight beyond its grams. Perhaps it was the patina of time, or the way the light played across its worn surface. Perhaps it was imagination. But there's something undeniably poetic about that sensation, the sense that you're touching a fragment of a story larger than yourself. As collectors aged, they passed down not just coins but stories. Fathers taught sons, mothers shared tales with daughters. Each generation added a layer of wonder, a small act of remembrance. In a world driven by digital transactions, where physical money was fading into abstraction, the penny became a symbol of permanence. A small, tangible link to a time when value had weight and history could be felt between your fingertips. In somewhere, tucked away in a vault, a mysterious collector was said to guard the rumored $72 million specimen. No photos ever surfaced. No official auction record confirmed it. But the myth persisted, growing richer with every retelling. Because in the end, the truth matters less than the story, and the story of the 1976 penny had become a modern legend, a testament to human curiosity, hope, and the eternal search for meaning. The coin's legacy expanded far beyond its metal. Universities began to include numismatics in their cultural studies programs. Museums curated exhibits exploring how objects of everyday life could become sacred symbols. The penny, once a tool of commerce, had become a work of art, a conversation about time and value, a mirror reflecting humanity's longing to preserve the fleeting. Each time someone picks up a penny and looks at the date, the legend lives again. Maybe it's just a common coin, or maybe, just maybe, it's the one that could change everything. That small moment of uncertainty, that spark of imagination, is where the magic lies. The 1976 cent is more than copper and zinc. It's a chronicle of America's spirit, the belief that greatness can emerge from the ordinary, that hope can hide in plain sight. In a world obsessed with instant gratification, this little coin teaches patience. It reminds us that real treasures are discovered slowly, with care, with curiosity, with heart. And so, as decades pass and the digital age accelerates, the humble penny endures. Worn, tarnished, overlooked, yet still here. It carries the fingerprints of history, the echoes of millions of hands, the dreams of countless seekers. And perhaps, somewhere in that vast river of copper, lies the next legend waiting to be found. As the legend of the 1976 penny continued to spread across generations, it began to transcend the boundaries of numismatics entirely. People no longer spoke of it only in terms of weight or alloy or mint mark, they spoke of it as though it were alive. The small copper circle became a vessel for reflection, a symbol of something enduring in a world built on impermanence. It was not just about rarity anymore, it was about recognition, the human instinct to find meaning in the smallest things, to preserve fragments of history before they vanish into forgetfulness. In a society driven by speed and consumption, the penny stands apart. It moves slowly, passed hand to hand, unchanged by centuries of technological revolution. It is a relic of touch, a survivor of eras that no longer exist. In an age where money is little more than numbers on a screen, the penny's physicality feels sacred. You can feel its edges, its coolness, its weight, and in that brief sensation lies connection, to the mint worker who struck it, to the president whose face it bears, to the millions of lives it has brushed against. The 1976 in particular, embodies this tension between the tangible and the transcendent. When it was minted, America was celebrating its bicentennial, 200 years of independence, progress, struggle, and reinvention. It was a time of reflection and renewal, a moment when the nation looked backward to honor its roots and forward to imagine its destiny. Though the cent itself did not receive a special bicentennial reverse, it was still part of that symbolic year, minted in the same spirit of remembrance and pride. Every 1976 coin, in its own way, carried the echo of that celebration. But the 1976 cent, struck in Denver's vast mechanical heart, carried something else, a whisper of mystery. Its story would outlast its origin. As decades passed, the coin became a mirror reflecting the human soul's most persistent desires, the yearning to discover, to believe, to find beauty in the ordinary. It's strange, isn't it, how the smallest object can provoke the largest questions? A 1-cent coin, worth almost nothing in a shop, can make people wonder about fate, history, even eternity. Yet when you hold a penny, especially one marked 1976, you hold time itself. Think of the billions of seconds that have passed since it was struck, the countless pockets it has visited, the stories it has witnessed. Perhaps it jingled in the change purse of a mother buying bread, or sat forgotten in the drawer of a soldier who went overseas. Perhaps it was dropped on a sidewalk decades ago, waiting silently under layers of dust and rain until someone noticed its glint and picked it up again. Every scratch, every worn edge is a testimony of survival. And survival is, perhaps, the truest form of value. Metals corrode, empires fall, currencies change, but meaning endures. The 1976 penny became a symbol of that endurance. It's a reminder that the things we overlook often carry the deepest resonance. That something once dismissed as worthless can become priceless, not because of what it is made of, but because of what it represents. In the modern era, where digital coins and invisible transactions dominate, the physical penny feels almost defiant. It resists obsolescence through sheer stubbornness. Even as economists debate its cost, as politicians call for its retirement, the public resists letting it go. Perhaps unconsciously, people understand that to lose the penny would be to lose a piece of themselves, the memory of childhood piggy banks, of counting change, of finding a lucky penny on the ground. It's more than metal, it's a cultural heartbeat. And within that heartbeat, the 1976 pulse is strongest. Not because of its material rarity, but because of the emotional gravity that people have given it. Somewhere, deep down, we all want to believe that hidden treasures still exist, that there are miracles left to be found. That belief is what keeps collectors searching, what keeps stories alive, what keeps history breathing. There's something profoundly philosophical about that. Money, after all, is just an agreement, a collective story we tell about value. But when a coin becomes mythic, it transcends the story of economy and enters the story of humanity. It becomes art, symbol, and relic all at once. It becomes a reminder that worth is never fixed, it is fluid, shifting with time, memory, and imagination. Look closely at the obverse of the 1976 Lincoln's gaze is not stern but reflective, his eyes cast slightly downward, as if contemplating the passage of time itself. The word liberty stands beside him, a word both political and spiritual. Below, the date anchors the coin to a specific moment in history, while the D mint mark quietly speaks of place at Denver, a city of mountains and mines, where earth and fire merge to create metal. Every line and letter carries meaning. It's all there, hidden in plain sight, waiting for those who care enough to see. Turn it over and the Lincoln Memorial stands, symmetrical and still, like a temple of remembrance. Within its columns sits the tiny figure of Lincoln himself, a coin within a coin, an image within an image. That self-reflection feels intentional, almost metaphysical. The coin seems to meditate on itself, to fold history inward. The observer becomes part of that loop, completing the cycle between past and present, between art and audience. And somewhere in that endless reflection lies the true essence of the 1976 cent. It is not merely a coin but a question. What do we value, and why? What gives something worth its rarity, its story, or our belief in it? Perhaps the coin's legendary $72 million valuation is not meant to be taken literally but symbolically. Perhaps it represents the immeasurable worth of memory, curiosity, and imagination. It reminds us that not all treasures can be priced, and not all riches are visible. For those who understand its symbolism, the 1976 penny is a meditation disguised as money, a lesson hidden in copper. There are collectors who have spent their entire lives chasing perfection, flawless strikes, mint-state brilliance, immaculate luster. But there are others who love the worn coins best, the ones that have lived, traveled, and aged. They see beauty in the tarnish, wisdom in the wear. To them, every scratch is a story, every imperfection a reminder of time's gentle hand. The 1976 in all its variations, embodies that philosophy. It teaches that even the most ordinary object can become extraordinary when viewed through the lens of care and wonder. And so, as each year passes, the legend continues to evolve. New discoveries appear, new theories emerge, new hearts are captured by its glow. Yet beneath all the noise, one truth remains constant: the story of the 1976 is, at its core, a story about people, about their dreams, their hopes, their endless search for meaning. In that sense, the coin is immortal. Not because it is made of enduring metal, but because it lives in the imagination. It travels from mind to mind, from story to story, from generation to generation. It has become a myth not through scarcity, but through significance. And that, perhaps, is the greatest form of value any object can achieve. There are moments when a simple object seems to carry the weight of something unseen, when a fragment of metal feels charged with meaning far beyond its physical form. For many, the 1976 penny became one of those objects, a talisman of fortune, a whisper of destiny. It was as though time itself had conspired to give an ordinary coin an extraordinary purpose. Collectors didn't just search for it, they felt drawn to it, as if answering a call that came from somewhere deeper than curiosity. Stories began to spread to quiet, anonymous tales that drifted across forums and late-night conversations. Someone found one and swore that their life changed afterward: a new job, an unexpected inheritance, a reunion long hoped for. Another kept a worn 1976D in their wallet for decades, believing it brought them luck in every venture. Skeptics laughed, but believers nodded. Luck, after all, has never needed proof, only faith. In every age, humanity has sought symbols to carry its hope. In ancient times it was carved stones, blessed charms, fragments of meteorite thought to hold divine power. In the modern world, it is copper, stamped by machines, carrying the face of a man who embodied endurance and courage. Perhaps that's why the penny became such a potent emblem. Its color is the hue of the earth, its shape a circle without beginning or end, its image a leader who stood for freedom and resilience. There is something almost alchemical about that combination: metal, meaning, and memory fused together. The act of finding a rare coin often feels like destiny. Think of it, billions of identical pieces scattered across the continent, yet one finds its way into your hand. The probability is infinitesimal, and yet it happens. At that moment, the universe seems to wink, a reminder that chance and fate might not be as separate as we think. The 1976D carries that sensation in its very presence. Whether it's found in a dusty box or lying forgotten in the soil, it seems to appear when the finder needs it most, as though reminding them to look closer at life's overlooked miracles. Philosophers might say that such stories reveal more about us than about the coin itself. We see patterns where none exist because we long for meaning, we assign value to randomness because we crave connection. But maybe, just maybe, those instincts are not delusions but ancient truths. Maybe the universe does speak in small symbols. Maybe destiny hides not in the grand events but in the details, the whispers, the glints of copper in the dust. The 1976D penny has become one of those whispers. Its story transcends markets and catalogs. It speaks of patience, of attention, of reverence for the small. People who search for it often describe the experience as meditative. They lose track of time, their eyes scanning endless rows of coins under lamplight, their minds quiet and focused. It's not unlike prayer, a dialogue between the seeker and the unseen. The coin becomes a mirror in which they glimpse their own persistence and hope. There's also something profound about the way the penny resists its own disappearance. Governments have debated eliminating it for decades, calling it obsolete. Yet it endures, stubborn and silent, as if refusing to let go of its place in human consciousness. Perhaps it survives because it carries a kind of spiritual gravity. To remove it would feel like erasing a fragment of collective memory. The 1976D, in particular, embodies that resistance, an artifact of endurance in an age of disposability. And endurance, in its purest form, is another name for faith. Faith that meaning survives even when logic says it shouldn't. Faith that small things matter. Faith that somewhere, hidden in ordinary life, miracles are waiting to be found. Some mystics see the penny as a symbol of cycles: birth, decay, renewal. The copper darkens with age, then brightens when polished, mirroring the human spirit's own rhythm of wear and awakening. When you look closely at a 1976D, you see that interplay of light and shadow, new and old, promise and memory. In its surface is a quiet lesson that everything, even metal, carries a story of transformation. And perhaps that's why the legend of the $72 million penny endures. Not because anyone truly believes that every coin could make them rich, but because the story invites belief itself. It's a myth about possibility, about how even the smallest things can hold unimaginable potential. In that sense, the value isn't measured in dollars but in dreams. There's an ancient proverb that says, luck is the residue of attention, the more you look, the more the world reveals. Collectors understand this instinctively. The act of searching for the 1976D penny becomes a metaphor for living, for paying attention, for noticing the overlooked, for believing that beauty hides in the mundane. And somewhere within that practice lies wisdom. Because the truth of the 1976D isn't just about the coin, it's about perspective. It teaches that greatness often wears the disguise of simplicity. That wonder doesn't vanish, it merely waits to be seen again. That every day, in pockets and drawers and moments, something extraordinary lies just beneath the surface of the ordinary. Perhaps that's why, even in a world saturated with technology and spectacle, people still bend down to pick up a penny from the ground. Not for the money, not even for the superstition, but for the quiet gesture of acknowledgement, a small bow to luck, to life, to the mystery that moves unseen through everything. The 1976D penny carries that gesture into eternity. It reminds us that value is never absolute, it is born in the meeting between the object and the observer. It reminds us that destiny doesn't announce itself with thunder, it appears quietly, in the palm of your hand. And when you turn it over, see the memorial on the reverse, that miniature temple of memory, it feels almost like an altar. Perhaps that's what every coin truly is, a shrine to exchange, to connection, to trust. The act of passing it from one person to another is an ancient ritual disguised as commerce. We trade not just goods, but fragments of story, of time, of self. The 1970-60 is simply the one that made us remember the truth.so when people speak of it being worth $72 million. Maybe what they mean is this: that no sum of money could equal the meaning it has gathered, the hope it has carried, the dreams it has inspired. It has become, in its own way, a symbol of infinite possibility, a reminder that even in a world of scarcity, imagination remains boundless. And as long as there are eyes to notice, hands to hold, and hearts to wonder, the story of the 1970-60 penny will never end. The legend of the 1970-60 penny had begun in whispers among collectors, historians, and dreamers, but over time, it evolved into something much larger. It became a cultural phenomenon, an idea that rippled through generations, shaping how people saw value, history, and themselves. It wasn't just about numismatics anymore. It was about the stories we tell to make sense of the world, and how those stories live on long after the objects themselves fade. Artists began to take notice. Painters, sculptors, and digital creators found in the 1970-60 penny a perfect metaphor for hidden worth. They recreated its image in bronze and acrylic, in pixels and holograms. Some painted it enormous, the size of a human face, with the reflection of time and history glimmering across Lincoln's profile. Others crafted miniature sculptures of the coin, embedding it in glass or resin, letting it float as if suspended between worlds. To these artists, the penny wasn't just a relic, it was a symbol of endurance, a quiet defiance against the disposable culture that surrounded them. Filmmakers, too, found inspiration in the story. Independent documentaries explored the emotional lives of collectors, people who spent years chasing what others called impossible. Their basements filled with magnifying glasses, coin rolls, and notebooks full of scribbled theories. Yet when they spoke of their searches, their eyes glowed not with greed but with reverence. They weren't chasing money, they were chasing mystery. The 1970-60 became a mirror for their passion, a symbol of humanity's endless hunger to find meaning in the overlooked. Even popular culture began to echo the myth. In films, TV shows, and novels, characters stumbled upon rare pennies that changed their fates. Songs were written about finding luck in unlikely places. The phrase "check your change" entered everyday language, a shorthand for hope, a reminder that miracles might still be hiding in the mundane. And in the digital age, as stories spread faster than ever before, the 1970-60 penny became an icon of possibility, the embodiment of what it means to believe. Online communities formed around it. Collectors from every corner of the world gathered in forums, trading images, measurements, theories. One person in Tokyo might post a photo of a 1970-60 with a strange toning pattern, and within hours, collectors in London, New York, and Karachi would analyze it pixel by pixel, debating whether it was an error strike or simply the mark of age. Each conversation carried a sense of shared purpose, a feeling that everyone was participating in something larger, a collective investigation into mystery. Social media amplified the phenomenon. Videos showing coin rolls being opened under bright lamps attracted millions of views. Every glint of copper under the camera lens carried a small surge of hope for both the viewer and the creator. Even if no fortune was found, the act of searching itself became art. People spoke about patience, about gratitude, about how coin hunting taught them to see beauty in repetition. The 1970-60 became not just a coin, but a lesson in mindfulness, a meditation disguised as a hobby. There were also the skeptics, the voices of logic and reason. Economists reminded the public that myths inflate value. Analysts insisted that markets are built on tangible rarity, not stories. But even they had to admit something extraordinary was happening, that belief itself was giving life to the legend. In a world increasingly dominated by virtual currencies and fleeting trends, the persistence of fascination for a single copper coin spoke volumes about human nature. The legend began to seep into academia. Lectures and essays explored the 1970-60 penny as a cultural symbol, a case study in collective myth-making. Psychologists wrote about the numismatic imagination, the way humans attach narrative to objects. Philosophers used it to illustrate the fluidity of value. Even sociologists found meaning in the communities built around the search, calling them modern tribes united not by geography but by wonder. And in that collective wonder, something beautiful emerged, a reminder that technology may have changed how we live, but not why we live. Even as the world grew faster, colder, more digital, people still found meaning in tangible, human stories. The 1970-60 penny became a bridge between eras, between the analog and the digital, between the practical and the poetic, between the world of money and the world of meaning. Artists began incorporating real pennies into their works, using them as mosaics or embedding them in resin sculptures that captured the light in mesmerizing ways. Each piece told a story about transformation, about resilience, about how something as humble as a cent could hold the essence of time itself. Galleries began to host exhibitions where the penny was not a coin, but a canvas for reflection. Meanwhile, digital creators took the legend further. Virtual reality museums recreated the Denver Mint in immersive detail, letting visitors watch the 1976 pennies being struck, one after another, while narrations whispered the history of each layer of copper and zinc. In online marketplaces, limited edition NFT artworks of the 1976 were sold not as replacements for the physical coin, but as digital echoes of its myth. The coin had transcended even the boundary of matter, becoming an idea that could exist in both worlds, physical and virtual, at once. This blending of myth and modernity gave the 1976 penny a new kind of immortality. It was no longer bound to its metal form. It had become a story told across mediums, across generations, across realities. And in that evolution, it revealed something profound, that what humanity values most is not wealth, but wonder. Every generation rediscovers that truth in its own way. For some, it's through art. For others, through science. For collectors, it's through the gleam of copper and the quiet rhythm of searching. The 1976 penny embodies that timeless curiosity. It reminds us that even in an age of information, mystery still matters. And that mystery continues to ripple through culture. Museums now display the 1976 alongside great works of art, not because of its price, but because of what it represents: the human urge to assign meaning, to connect, to remember. Children visiting these exhibits press their faces to the glass, staring at the small, familiar coin and realizing that history isn't something distant, it's something that can fit in the palm of your hand. And perhaps that's the true beauty of the 1976 it collapses the distance between the grand and the small, between the monumental and the intimate. In its tiny frame lives the story of a nation, a century, and countless lives intertwined by chance. Its legend became a tapestry woven from countless voices: collectors, artists, dreamers, skeptics, believers, all adding their threads to a story that will never truly end. As the decades unfold, its meaning will shift again. New generations will interpret it differently, perhaps as a relic of a vanished economy, or a symbol of nostalgia in a world without coins. But whatever form the future takes, the 1976 penny will endure, not because it is rare, but because it carries the rarest thing of all: a story that still makes people feel. As the years pass and the world changes beyond recognition, the 1976 penny remains like a small heartbeat in the great chest of history. The machines that once stamped it into existence have long gone silent, the workers who handled it have moved on, and yet the coin itself endures, quietly, patiently, untouched by time's noise. Every scratch, every stain, every touch of oxidation becomes part of its identity, like wrinkles on the face of an ancient storyteller. People still search for it, still whisper its name. But something has shifted. The hunt is no longer only for a piece of copper, it is for a connection, a glimpse into continuity. When collectors hold it in their hands, they feel more than weight. They feel presence. It's as if, through the thin surface of metal, one can sense the pulse of an entire century, its struggles, its revolutions, its hopes. The 1976 penny carries within it the spirit of its year, the bicentennial of a nation, the echo of celebration and reflection. It was minted when the United States stood at a crossroads between the ideals of its founding and the uncertainties of a modern age. That year, fireworks lit up the skies from coast to coast, and under those bursts of light, millions of pennies shimmered in pockets and jars, witnesses to a people searching for renewal. No one could have guessed that one day, one of those humble coins would become a symbol of near mythic worth. But perhaps worth was never really the point. Perhaps the true miracle lies in how humanity turns ordinary things into vessels of meaning. The 1976 penny is proof that even the smallest artifact can absorb the energy of human dreams. Each time it was spent, saved, dropped, or picked up, it collected invisible stories, like a traveler absorbing the language of every land it passed through. A coin passes through countless hands in its lifetime, each hand leaving an invisible mark. A child might have bought candy with it in 1976, unaware that 50 years later, historians would speak its name with reverence. A worker might have kept it in a pocket for luck during a hard year. A parent might have given it to a child as a lesson in saving, planting a seed of patience. Each act, however small, built layers of meaning that transformed the penny into something almost sacred. Now, in museums and private collections, under glass and soft light, the 1976 rests as an artifact of wonder. It reflects back not only the face of Lincoln but the faces of those who look upon it, merging past and present in a single reflection. That is its silent magic, to remind us that we are not separate from history, but participants in it. In this way, the coin becomes a metaphor for time itself, circular, eternal, constantly passing from hand to hand. Its round shape mirrors the orbit of planets, the turning of wheels, the cycles of life. Every revolution of its design, from the rim to Lincoln's gaze, feels like a meditation on continuity. The coin's gleam may fade, but its meaning grows brighter with every passing decade. And as the digital age deepens, its existence takes on a new poignancy. In a world where currency has become numbers on a screen, the penny feels almost human. It has texture, imperfection, and weight. It can be lost, found, held. It reminds us of touch, that simple, ancient gesture of contact. When someone turns it over between their fingers, they are performing a ritual older than language, the ritual of exchange, of trust, of belief in value. Philosophers have long asked what gives something worth. Is it rarity, beauty, or story? The 1970 penny answers quietly, it is meaning. For in its meaning, all other measures dissolve. Even if every collector agreed tomorrow that it was worth nothing, the myth would remain, because meaning doesn't vanish when markets fall. It endures in memory, in conversation, in the invisible bond between people who believe. In that sense, the 1970 is not just a coin, it's a memory loop, a shared dream that humanity keeps alive through attention. Each time someone searches for it, the myth is reborn. Each time someone tells its story, the past breathes again. It's as if the coin has transcended its metal body and become a living idea, timeless, indestructible, carried forward by curiosity itself. And this is where the story grows almost spiritual. Because when an object lasts long enough, it stops being just matter and becomes symbol. The 1970 penny has crossed that threshold. It stands now beside the great relics of history, not in size or material, but in significance. Like ancient charms, it reminds people of unseen forces that bind the human story together. In its small circle of copper lies the eternal question: what is value? What makes something precious? Some might say it's the market price, the $72 million legend that circles around it. Others might say it's the craftsmanship, the artistry, the precision of the Denver Mint in 1976. But deeper still, there is another truth, that its real value lies in the way it connects generations. From grandparents to grandchildren, from collectors to dreamers, from the mint floor to the digital screen, it carries the thread of continuity that defines human civilization. Imagine, for a moment, the coin speaking not with words, but with silence. It would tell us that value is not given, it is discovered. That worth is not inherited, it is created. It would remind us that even the smallest acts, the drop of a coin in a jar, the search through an old drawer, can open doors to wonder. It would whisper that we are all collectors, not of metal, but of meaning. The 1970 penny, in this way, becomes a spiritual teacher disguised as currency. Its lesson is humility. Its power lies in reminding us that greatness often hides in plain sight. And its beauty is eternal because it speaks to something universal, the desire to remember, to belong, to find magic in the ordinary. Perhaps that is why people cannot stop searching for it, even after decades. Not because they expect to find riches, but because they long to rediscover wonder. The act of searching becomes an act of hope. And hope, like copper, does not rust easily. And so the story continues, in whispers, in auctions, in quiet drawers and glowing screens. The 1970 penny endures, not because of the metal it's made from, but because of the dreams it holds. It has become more than a coin, it is a mirror of humanity's timeless longing, the wish that something small and forgotten might still hold infinite worth. The world changes, the decades roll forward, the hands that once held the 1970 penny grow older, fade, and pass, but the coin remains. It lies in drawers, in jars, in pockets of time itself, waiting for someone new to notice it. Somewhere in the soft hum of the universe, another light falls upon its surface, a child's flashlight, perhaps, shining on a coin their grandfather once saved, and once again, the legend begins to breathe. The 1970 penny has become more than metal, it is memory given form. It represents a century's worth of dreams and labors, of hands exchanging trust and promise. The copper surface glows faintly under the years of oxidation, but that glow is not decay, it is history made visible, the Earth's own way of recording what we once valued. In quiet moments, collectors around the world still sit beneath their lamps, magnifying glass in hand, eyes fixed upon the small circle of metal that has outlived presidents and wars, economies and empires. They study the edges, the faint D below the date, the wear across Lincoln's cheek. In that stillness, they feel something sacred, the recognition that even in the smallest details lies an entire story of humanity's pursuit of meaning. And so the myth continues, the 1970 penny worth $72 million, the coin that might change a life, the humble cent that somehow defied its destiny. Some say the number is exaggerated, that the legend is inflated, that no coin could be worth so much. Yet others smile quietly, knowing that worth is never just arithmetic. Value is belief made visible, and belief has always been humanity's most powerful currency. The coin becomes a mirror. When people look at it, they see themselves, their hopes, their persistence, their longing to hold something lasting in a world that moves too fast. It teaches patience, wonder, humility. It tells us that not everything precious must be large or loud. Sometimes, greatness fits in the palm of your hand. As the story spreads across generations, the 1970 penny becomes an heirloom of ideas. Grandparents tell it to grandchildren, teachers mention it in classrooms, filmmakers and writers shape its myth into art. It turns from rumor to ritual, a modern folktale in a digital world. People check their change not just for profit, but for possibility. Each coin flipped, each drawer searched, becomes an act of faith and discovery. And as the legend grows, something quietly profound happens. The coin no longer belongs to collectors alone. It belongs to everyone. It becomes a shared symbol of curiosity, of imagination, of the human drive to find wonder in ordinary places. That is its true wealth, not $72 million, but 72 million hearts that have paused, even for a second, to marvel at it. If you listen closely, you can almost hear the coin speak. Not in words, but in echoes. It whispers through the ticking of clocks, through the jingle of spare change, through the rustle of old currency bags in forgotten attics. It says, "Remember me. Remember that everything once thought small can one day be infinite." And maybe that's the greatest legacy of the 1976 penny, that it proves nothing is truly ordinary. It reminds us that history hides in plain sight, waiting for open eyes to see it. It teaches that the stories we tell about our world are what keep it alive. In the end, the 1976 penny is not just the story of a coin, it's the story of us. Of our faith in memory, our fascination with time, our endless hunger to give meaning to matter. It carries the light of every hand that held it, every dream that touched it, every whisper that said, "This could be the one." And as the film fades, as the narrator's voice softens into silence, the last image is simple: a single penny resting on a wooden table, the morning light spilling across it. Its copper surface glows, as if it remembers everything: the mint, the touch of countless lives, the laughter of children, the hopes of collectors, the belief that even a cent can hold the universe. The camera slowly pulls back. The penny becomes smaller, the light brighter. And in that widening glow, the world itself seems to shimmer: billions of lives, billions of stories, all turning like coins in the great hand of time. And then, just before the screen fades to black, one final whisper.